Welcome to the Inside Forbes Council's podcast. Each episode shares transformative insights and advice from members of Forbes Councils, a group of invitation-only communities for successful executives and entrepreneurs. This is Inside Forbes Councils.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Inside Forbes Councils. I'm your host, Stephen Ganoza. Social media, for better or for worse, has become an integral part of American life. Ever since its propulsion into the forefront of mainstream culture, brands have been using it for marketing. Over the last few years, however, companies have been focusing less on megastars and more on what are known as nano-influencers. Today, we sat down with Amy Power, founder and CEO of the Power Group, and Michael Lambie, head of product at creatorIQ. Amy and Michael are experts in their field and are here to share some insights with us about getting the most out of influencer partnerships.
Hi, my name is Amy Power. I am the founder and CEO of the Power Group in Dallas, Texas. And we are a unique firm because we work a lot with influencers, but what truly makes us unique is that we have an influencer on our team. So it really gives us a great peek under the hood in terms of what influencers want and how their industry is changing and evolving. One of the trends that we are seeing is just the rise and the power of what we call the nano-influencer. So when everybody thinks of an influencer, they think of somebody like a Kim Kardashian or somebody at that level. But there is a lot of power and influence in individuals who have anywhere from 500, 2,000, 30,000 followers, and those are considered a lot smaller than somebody that's living and working in Kim Kardashian's world. So it is an influencer's world. Brands know it. Kylie Jenner knows it, and so do the growing number of micro-influencers, or like I said, nano-influencers. They're shining their light on emerging brands as well as established brands, and they can be important for a company that's making small batch organic face cream to the latest fried chicken sandwich. The nanos are just really everyday people, just like you and me, but they've decided to share their opinion. They have decided to have a presence on social media, and whether it's by luck or passion or intention, they have gained a small yet very powerful share of voice on one of the world's most influential social media networks, which we all know is Instagram. So if you're not on it, your daughter or son may be on it, certainly your employees may be on it. It's just a very powerful tool to be paying attention to. I always like the expression, the riches are in the niches, and that is something that I think nano-influencers truly understand. In San Francisco, there's a nano-influencer named Elise Wellness, and in Dallas, another one named the Chicken Critic of all things, and obviously she talks about chicken. With less than 5,000 followers each, these influencers have gained a lot of traction and have built quite an audience. They are definitely not your Kim Kardashian of this social media sphere. She has a mind-boggling 127 million people hanging on her every word, and it's still growing, I'm sure. But that's the power of the nano-influencer and their ascendancy. They may be small, but they're definitely very passionate and have a following. And the ability to influence somebody's purchasing decision is definitely in that 5, 10, 15,000 follower range. So when you take a step back and think about how you consume information and how you think about life and what products you buy, the world is so much bigger. We have access to everything from a recipe for an exotic curry dish to groceries online. We can all purchase it just within a few hours and a few clicks. And so there is this huge reliance on convenience, but there is that lack of one-to-one personal connection, that lack of one-to-one trust, that lack of word of mouth, and that is why I believe that the nano-influencers are on the rise. We are getting back, essentially, that personal connection that we had when we could walk next door to our neighbor's house and say, hey, what restaurant do you recommend, or pick up the phone and call. Now that's just done through Instagram. So it's that one-to-one connection that all humans crave. And that's why nano-influencers like the cool hip mom, she can connect with me because I'm also a mom in a way that Kim Kardashian West, also a mom, cannot. So, what are the tips for working with influencers? What do you need to know about working with a small but very important group? With any influencer, you've got to give them something to talk about. They need a compelling reason to talk about your brand. Is it a new menu item you want to test and draw attention to? Will they be one of the first to try it? What will make their experience special? They definitely want to give their audience something to engage with and remember. The second thing to take into consideration is to pay or not to pay. Every influencer is different. Some brands are carving out dollars in their marketing budgets for big paid influencer mentions and campaigns. But the beauty of working with nano-influencers is that you don't have to reach too deep into your own pocket to create an effective campaign. What you really do have to focus on is just finding the right influencers that align with your brand. And when you do communicate with them, give them something that's valuable. Oftentimes, a nicely branded box filled with your product or a gift card covering the cost of the experience is simply enough value. And don't forget about their fans. Give the nano-influencers something they can share with their audience. That's where all of the engagement and influence is happening anyway. Also remember that oftentimes with a smaller sized influencer, it's a side hustle. It may or may not be their day job. So how can you make it easy for them to work with your brand? What types of assets and guidance can you give them? Well-produced photography, inspiration, props that are on brand, samples, giveaways, all of those things that help them do their job in a much easier and more seamless way and help you stay on brand. And simply, communicate. All influencers offer brands the same measurements, such as the number of likes and comments, as evidence of their success. But be upfront with the influencer about your goals. What is your expectation? What can they tell you about their audience and their likes or dislikes? And also geographically, are their audiences in different places or are they all in one location? So it's important to know if that audience is in New York only or dispersed across the nation. Working with influencers, in my opinion, is a lot like harnessing the power of the sun. We all understand the power of sunshine. It illuminates, it reveals, and we all gravitate toward its warmth. But when you focus this light, it can be a very powerful laser that can cut through the strongest of materials. And anytime you can break through the noise and the clutter in today's marketing environment, I would say you have a laser that's very effective. So nano-influencers have concentrated on something that brands want more than anything, the desire for a focused message and connection. And if you find the right ones, they can illuminate your brand for a fraction of what it would cost to work with a celebrity and still reap similar benefits for your brand. So in working with influencers, focus on the nano and good luck to you.
Thanks so much, Amy. Next up, we have Michael, who's going to talk a little bit about not only how megastars are not necessarily the best partners, but sometimes how you can get more value out of individuals who wouldn't even consider themselves influencers.
Just want to talk a little bit about nano-influencers. It's a word we've been hearing a lot about lately. First, we had the big mega influencers with millions of followers, and then people talked about the magic middle and the long tail. And now the long tail's been broken up into micro-influencers, and what we've now seen is nano-influencers, which tend to be content creators and influencers who have less than 10,000 followers. But what that really means is that in many ways, social media has been democratized for influencers, and that people no longer have the demand to work with the top creators, and the top creators can tend to be quite picky because they make so much money. They don't have to do that many jobs. What a nano influencer is that these are people who stems back to the days of word of mouth marketing. Anyone's an influencer if they have a relationship in that sense. So we've seen a lot of coverage about, has influencer marketing jumped the shark? Is everyone an influencer? And to some degree, yes, but it really depends on understanding what they're influential in and who they're influential to. We've seen really effective nano level influencer marketing among clients who are using it for B2B purposes. So for instance, we've seen a case study where if you have someone who, for instance, might be like a hedge fund manager, well, maybe they only have 2,000 or 3,000 followers on Facebook or Twitter, but all those people tend to make over $1 million a year. So it's a kind of a small audience of highly qualified people who may or may not like luxury goods and expensive vacations or other financial products that would be hard to target. These aren't the kind of people you can target in a general ad on broadcast television, and even some levels of targeting on paid media through digital, it's hard to pinpoint these types of people. For instance, someone like this could do a product integration for a luxury automobile like Bugatti or Lamborghini. They can ride around in it for a few days, talk about it. And if that one media post leads to 10 test drives and then 1 or 2 sales of the automobile, which costs, maybe $500,000, it's well worth the overall investment from a brand. That's just one example, but we've seen a lot of things like that. So the nano influencer isn't so much about unlocking your grandmother who has 50 followers and posts pictures of her grandkids all day. And that's not to say that we should count her out, but her audience of family members, unless they all tend to be, Rockefellers and Kennedys, might not have a uniqueness to it that some nano influencers do. Unlocking the strength of the nano influencer is providing the value of their audience and its relevance to a brand. So it's really important to have that audience level data to understand what the demographics are, whether it's income or some of the more unique interests that are related to high performing or even just expensive goods, or in many ways B2B. One area of massive growth we see around the nano influencers is doing this more in B2B marketing. If you have someone who's going to sell health insurance or medical devices at a plan level of tens of millions of dollars, you might incentivize that person that only has 10,000 followers, either a commission or easily pay them more than you would pay an influencer with 1 million followers, because even if they lead to 4 or 5 deals, that's a couple $1,000,000. So even though the person has 10,000 followers, it's certainly well worth it. We were just really interested and excited to see how the space expands, and that's one of the areas that we're focusing on is B2B.
Great. So what do you think the downsides to influencer partnerships are?
The model has certainly shifted a little bit. These are people who aren't necessarily a nano influencers and doing this as their full-time job. They're probably doing all right in their own right. For instance, to get a celebrity athlete or an actor or an actress to endorse a product, either they have to really have some goodwill and love for that brand or product, or have to be compensated accordingly. That says, if I make $25 million a year as an NBA player, if you pay me $10,000 or even $200,000 to do one tweet or one Instagram selfie, is that going to change my whole position in things or my life, my well-being? No, I'll probably donate that money to charity, but that's not going to make a deal. Also, these larger celebrities, they have an image to protect, so every brand they align with is a big deal. They're role models to kids. They have followers who have expectations of them. At the nano end of the scale, you don't have as much of that hype and expectations around you. You have a small community of people who probably trust you pretty well because it's such a small cohort of followers. The trust is there, and they're not going to disown you or have a public outcry or rage against you. Whereas we've seen a lot of that type of thing, the backlash against some of these high profile creators and influencers. Another dynamic that we see in influencer marketing that will shift the success of a campaign, and it's kind of like, if we understand that we have a creator that has a certain level of prestige within their vertical, let's say that they are a fashion or lifestyle influencer, if this person feels that their fans would understand that they're doing this to make a living, and they might be receptive to going to shop at a big box store, then they might say like, sure, oh my gosh, we love you, we're on your journey. Maybe it's not your dream, but they'll support you. If you're kind of snobby about the brands you work with and always touting luxury goods and that kind of thing, they might say, oh, you're kind of selling out, and we don't think you should take the paycheck. This isn't like you. You talk about how you're on this journey. And it could be negative for both her and the brand, because now the brand's kind of hitched themselves to someone whose audience wasn't ready to receive them. Versus, if they'd go do the luxury brand, maybe they don't even pay her. They just give her some trunk luggage or something and a free trip to, a fancy island somewhere. Her fans will love it, but they also might not necessarily sell that much trunk luggage out of it, but it's promoting the aspirational, right? Whereas working with a big box store, she could piss off maybe 10% of her audience who's a little bit more vain, but maybe there's 40% of their audience who, even where she's at, is aspirational to them. So they say, oh, wow, she has a line at this big box store. I'm like, I want to get that for myself or my daughter or whatever. And now she's actually led to sales at this big box company. These are kind of, some of the issues. The people that tend to do really well are the kind that can benefit from working with the person up a level, or the brand that's going up can also benefit. It's kind of a weird dynamic, but it certainly has an impact on the overall success of a lot of these campaigns and in the level of engagement and the sentiment that comes along with these. It's a little harder to quantify, like this kind of prestige level or however we'd want to call it, but certainly something we see. So when brand and creator are not in alignment, you can have quite poor success on a campaign or on a social media post. But when they're in alignment, they tend to do much better and they exceed kind of their own established norms.
Thanks so much, Michael. That was really eye-opening. Where can our listeners find out more about your company?
If you're interested to learn more about creatorIQ, you can find us online at creatorIQ.com.
The rise of nano-influencers is really an interesting trend and shows that anyone on social media can be significant, no matter the subscriber count. The quality of your followers is certainly more important than the quantity. That's all the time we have for today. As always, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
This has been Inside Forbes Councils. Please be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a member of the Forbes Councils and would like to participate in our podcast series, please email your member concierge. If you're interested in joining a Forbes Council, learn more at ForbesCouncils.com.